So today on Planet Geography, we are dealing with exam questions and particularly explain exam questions. So this is a bit of a masterclass in explain questions. For me, if you can get explain questions right, those longer assess and evaluate questions, you can still pick up very good marks, okay? So for me, the explain question is the first one we're making for me, but it's the most important. And the key kind of thoughts on explain questions is it's points-based marking. Pretty much a mark for your point and a mark for each sentence afterwards, okay? Connectives, they extend our writing and therefore they add marks. So if you think you've not written enough to get full marks, maybe consider adding a connective. Examiners, they skim read your work, and so they're looking for that academic tier 2 language and that tier 3 language, that geography specific language. So your language is really important. And with explain questions, examples are welcome. You will get marks for them, but you don't absolutely need them. They're not essential. Okay, so let's delve into how to tackle explain questions. What's going to happen in this video is I'm going to not rush through it. I'm going to do an example, then we're going to do one together, and then you are going to do one by yourself. Okay, so let's have a look. Here's the question I went for. Okay, it's a 4-marker because generally, and I'll explain later in the video as to why, if you can do 4 markers, you can do all types of explain questions. So we'll deal with 4 markers in this video, and at the end I'll show you how you can convert it from 4 markers into 2 markers or 4 markers into 6 markers, okay? So make sure you stay to the end for that. So I'm going to do this one. We're going to start by bugging the question. Explain, box the command word. 1 advantage needs to be underlined, wind power, electricity. Okay, so 1 advantage of wind power. Yep, that's what this question's about. At a glance, we see it's 4 marks, okay? So this needs to be our structure. Our point will get us a mark, and those 3 developments that come afterwards will also get us marks. And this is what I mean. Connectives add marks. For example, I put it down here in brackets because you could substitute this means that or as a result, for example, if you have one. And again, so these are not set in stone, you must use them. It's the principle of 1.3 connectives. So let's look at how I would do this and how I would answer this one. Here is the mark scheme, so you might want to pause it and read the mark scheme. We are going to be doing about wind power being a clean energy resource. Okay, so really helping us fight back in the fight against climate change. So this one here is what I'm going to attempt to write. Again, pause it, read it if you want to, but I'll show you what I think would have got full marks. 1 advantage is generating electricity that is a clean energy resource. So I'm going to get a mark for saying clean energy resource. That's my point. Everything else in this paragraph needs to link to the fact it is a clean energy resource. So now I'm locked in. Because, so let's develop it, burning fossil fuels emits greenhouse gases. And this doesn't burn fossil fuels. So I'm going to get a second mark for saying fossil fuels emit greenhouse gases, and this doesn't do that. This means that wind turbines are considered a carbon zero method of producing electricity. Again, as an examiner, I'm seeing this means that. I'm seeing a nice bit of language here, wind turbines. But the thing that's really going to get the mark in this sentence here is carbon zero. Okay? Finally, so to get that 4th mark, so I've got a mark here, and a mark here. As a result, wind power helps to reduce global warming, which is one of the most significant advantages. So again here, I'm doing enough for 2 marks here, really, but I'm only need 1. Global warming, again, like use of tier 3 language, it just straight away jumps out to the examiner and says, okay, well actually, they're telling me why clean energy is important. It's because we're fighting against global warming or climate change. And then I link back to the question by saying, which is one of the most significant advantages, because you see this word here, advantages. I'm linking it back to the question. You can see here I also use advantages at the start of the paragraph. So I'm showing the examiner by using these words from the question that I'm very much staying on topic. If you did want to use a for example, if you wanted to take out this means that or as a result, For example, the UK now generates over 30% of its electricity from wind energy on average. That could easily be dropped in instead of these as results if you have it. But again, don't panic if you don't have a case study. Just talk more about the theory. This is my version, okay? Feel free to pause it, reread it, see if you like it. There are potential improvements maybe. But yeah, I think that gets full marks. I think that gets 4 out of 4. So we're sticking with the same question here, and we're going to look at a different way of answering it. Okay, so the connectives all stay the same, and what my plan here is to do is I'm going to read you a sentence, my initial point, and what I suggest you do is you pause the video and you write what you think I'm going to say next, and then I'll show you what I'm going to say next. You pause the video, you write the next bit of the sentence, so it's almost like we're writing this at the same time. Okay, so if you do have a pen and paper, get it out and try to write along as I write this. All right. So again, let's just jump back to the mark scheme. Here we can see there's lots of different answers that would have got us marks: clean energy, cost effective, renewable energy resource, existing farmland. I'm going to go for what I think is the second easiest one to write, which is wind energy is a renewable energy source, basically meaning it's infinite, it's abundant, it's not going to run out. It's the opposite of finite, it's infinite. So let's get stuck in and let's see how this works. One advantage is that wind is a renewable energy resource. So what I would do now is I would pause this video. We know it's going to be because is the next connective. So I would say, just start your sentence with because and write down what you think I would write next. One advantage that wind is renewable energy resource. Okay, I will continue. I'll assume that you paused the video and I'll continue. Because it's naturally replenished and will not run out. So the next connective is going to be as a result of this means that. I believe it's as a result. So again, I would pause the video and I would try and write an as a result sentence. Okay, so I'm saying, look, it's a renewable resource, it's naturally replenished. As a result, what could you write? Okay, I will continue. This means that, again, as a result, this means that they can be interchanged and swapped. This means that wind can be used continuously without the risk of depletion. Now this is nice, that key language, that academic writing continuously, without interruption, without pause. And again, depletion, running out. These are nice words. If you wrote something like, the wind will not run out, and therefore humans will have an energy source forever. Again, that works as well. Even if the language isn't as academic, it still works. If you said something similar, that's fine. So as a result, we said it will continuously without risk of depletion. As a result, what would you write? So again, I would pause the video. I'd try and write your as a result sentence and I'd compare it to what I have written. As a result, it provides a long-term and sustainable option for a country's energy mix, even when fossil fuels, like coal, oil, or natural gas, have been exhausted. So long after humans have used all of the coal and all of the oil and all of the natural gas in this world, we will still have wind. Okay, so it's nice. This paragraph here is contrasting renewable energies with finite fossil fuels. Okay. Now look, I've never done this before. I don't know if that was useful. But again, for example, that you could have put in, for example, the UK receives enough wind in one day to power its energy needs for a whole year. Okay? So, I don't know if you did or didn't do that. I hope you found it useful. So we have now done one. And so now what I'm going to encourage you to do is do your own and stick to that principle of using those connectives and using your key language. So this is a question. Again, I'm going to completely change the topic we're talking about from renewable energies to protecting our coastlines. This question came up in the Edexcel B Geography paper in 2022. Again, even if you're not doing Edexcel B, what I'm teaching you is good geographical writing. Good geographical writing gets marks in every type of exam specification. Okay, so there you go. There's your connectives. Have a go at answering this question. Explain one reason why some coastlines are protected whilst others are not. So why is the government, again, if you bug it, box the command word, one reason, coastlines protected. Yep. Have a go. One reason is because this means that as a result. Maybe for example, if you have one. Why does the government choose to protect some places but not others? What I will do now is I'll flash up the mark scheme and you can self-assess your work. Equally, if you want to write this paragraph and leave it in the comments section, I will try and get back to you and I'll tell you a score out of 4, and if it's not perfect, I'll tell you how to try and make it so. Okay, so look away now. If you pause the video and do this, and then in 1 second time, I'm going to show you the mark scheme, what you would have got. Okay, so here is your mark scheme. We can see here 1 mark for your point and 1 mark additional mark for your development. Yep. Hopefully you produce something similar to that, but really the answer was that some areas produce more economic activity than others. All right, so just before you leave, I would point you to this. We've talked about 4-mark explain questions, but what about the 2 markers and the 8 markers and the 6 markers and the 3 markers? Well, the principle stays the same. If you stick to the connectors, well, if it's a 3 marker, instead of doing 1 point developed 3 times, you just do 1 point with 2. If it's a 2 marker, it just becomes 1 sentence. One reason is because. There's your point and there's your development. But what about the longer ones, the 6 markers? Well, there's 2 ways to approach the 6 markers. You can think of it as 2 3-mark explain questions, so 2 of these, or you can think of it as 3 of these. This tends to be easier, but you need more points. One reason is because, another reason is because, a final reason is because. That gets you 6 marks. But so does this. So the question is it better to have depth or is it to have more points? Okay, it's generally agreed amongst teachers that this is the easier option, so maybe do that if you can. And then the 8-mark explain questions. Not every specification has these, but I would just consider you to think of them as 2 4-mark questions. So if you can do the 4-mark, you can do the 8-mark, okay? Paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. And it's for this reason that I chose to do the 4 markers, because I feel like if you can do the 4-mark explain questions, you're just removing connectives here, you're removing a connective here, and writing 2. You know, if you can do that, you can do this, okay? So do practice your 4-mark explain questions if you haven't. And so again, we go back to our key thoughts. With explain questions, it's point-based marking. It's connectives, add marks. It's tier 2 and tier 3 language. You know, how good is your vocabulary? Because the better you make it, the more marks you will get. And then examples are welcome, but not essential. So don't panic if you don't have an example. Just make sure you add in those more connectives. And finally, what I would do is I'd point you to this. This is a resource I've made that I do think is very, very good. It's the structure depending on the command word. So it could be evaluate and assess. It could be describe graphs, multiple choice, and so on. Okay. If you want a copy of this, just scan the QR code and you can download it for free. Or you can just take a print screen. But this is your cheat sheet. If you have this and you go through a past paper, I think that's fantastic revision. Go through answering the questions and sticking to this structure. You're going to do very, very well. Okay. So guys, I hope that helped. I'm going to try and make a assess and evaluate video next, and then we'll probably move on to describe after that, guys. So like and subscribe for future videos. Hope it helps. Give me feedback in the comments. Post your videos post your exam questions in the comments, and I will give you some feedback as much as I can. All right, guys. I hope you found it useful, and good luck in your GCSEs.